Every royal family told themselves the same story: marry within the bloodline. Keep the throne pure. Keep the power contained. For 1,000 years, they repeated it like a prayer. The results were documented in bone fractures, stillborn heirs, jaw deformities, and autopsy reports that read like genetic catastrophe inventories. This is what the bloodline actually produced. Tutankhamun, Egypt, 18th dynasty, circa 1323 BCE. Tutankhamun became pharaoh at age 9. He ruled the wealthiest civilization on earth. He could not walk without a cane. DNA analysis conducted in 2010. The first genetic study ever performed on Egyptian royal mummies confirmed that his father and mother were full siblings. The result was a body assembling itself from the same defective blueprint. Twice, the boy king carried Kolar disease, a condition in which bone tissue in the foot dies from insufficient blood supply. He also carried a cleft palate, a curved spine, and necrosis in the bones of his left foot. The 130 walking canes found in his tomb were not ceremonial. They were medical equipment. At some point in his 19th year, a femur fracture went untreated. Simultaneously, malaria, Plasmodium falciparum, the most lethal strain, entered his already compromised system. He did not die from a chariot accident. He died because his immune system had nothing left to offer. 2 fetuses, both female, were found sealed in his tomb. His wife was either his half-sister or his full sister. Neither child survived. The bloodline had consumed itself before it could continue. Cleopatra VII, Egypt, Ptolemaic Dynasty, 30 BCE. The Ptolemies ruled Egypt for 275 years. For 275 years, they married each other. Cleopatra VII descended from a dynasty in which siblings routinely became spouses, aunts became wives, and the family tree did not branch so much as fold back upon itself. By the time of her birth, she had only 2 pairs of great-grandparents. One of those pairs was itself a brother-sister union. She was intelligent. She spoke 9 languages. She was also the product of approximately 5 generations of concentrated inbreeding, though the exact topology of her ancestry remains partially obscured because her mother's identity was never formally recorded. The dynasty she inherited had already begun dismantling itself. Her father, Ptolemy XII, had been expelled twice by his own people. Her older sister, Berenice IV, seized the throne, then ordered her executed. Her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, raised an army against her. Her younger sister Arsinoe fought alongside Rome, then against it, then was murdered on Cleopatra's request. The Ptolemaic family did not need external enemies. They manufactured enough internally. Cleopatra survived longer than most of her relatives, which is a lower bar than it sounds. In 30 BCE, with Octavian's legions at the gates of Alexandria, she died by suicide. The method is disputed. The most widely accepted account involves a concealed asp. She was 39. The bloodline that had ruled Egypt since 305 BCE ended with her. The Romans catalogued her treasury, shipped her children to Rome, and converted Egypt into a province. She was the last. There were no more of her to make. Juana of Loca, Castile and Aragon, Spain, died 1555. Juana of Castile was the granddaughter of the Catholic monarchs. She was also a Habsburg. These 2 facts would define the rest of her life in ways she did not choose. At 16, she was married to Philip of Burgundy, called Philip the Handsome, who was himself the product of concentrated dynastic inbreeding, and who deployed his appearance as a professional instrument of infidelity. Juana was, by contemporary accounts, completely devoted to him. Philip found this inconvenient. When Juana discovered one of his mistresses, she cut the woman's hair off. When Philip died suddenly in 1506 at age 28, possibly from typhoid, possibly from poisoned water, Juana refused to allow the coffin to be permanently sealed. For weeks, she traveled with the body. She opened it. She would not allow women near it, reportedly from jealousy. Her father, Ferdinand of Aragon, declared her mentally unfit to rule. Her son, the future Charles I of Spain, confirmed this declaration. She was confined to the convent of Tordesillas in 1509. She remained there for 46 years. She was not permitted to leave. She was not permitted to hear Mass regularly. She was not permitted to bathe. When she refused to eat, attendants forced food into her. In 1555, she died inside the same stone walls she had occupied since the year she was 29. She was 75 years old. Whether her madness was genetic, the product of inbreeding in the house of Trastamara, or the product of isolation, grief, and 4 decades of confinement is a question historians continue to debate. Both explanations are, in the end, compatible. Charles II of Spain, Spanish Habsburg dynasty, died 1700. Philip I, the founder of the Spanish Habsburg line, had an inbreeding coefficient of 0.025. 5 generations later, his descendant Charles II had an inbreeding coefficient of 0.254. That number is higher than the expected value for the child of a union between uncle and niece. It is higher than the child of a brother and sister. It was achieved through 11 marriages among the Spanish Habsburgs, most between first cousins, 2 between uncles and nieces, and 1 in which Juana of Castile appears in the family tree 14 separate times. Charles II was born in 1661. He was not expected to survive infancy. He did not walk until age 8. He could not chew solid food because his jaw, the Habsburg jaw, the protruding mandible that had traveled through the bloodline for generations, was so pronounced that his tongue did not fit correctly in his mouth. He drooled throughout his adult life. He suffered from epilepsy, from digestive disorders, severe enough to cause chronic vomiting, from what physicians at the time called melancholy and historians now suspect was a combination of combined pituitary hormone deficiency and distal renal tubular acidosis, 2 rare genetic disorders that become statistically probable only under extreme inbreeding. He was bald by 35. He was senile before 40. He married twice. He produced no children from 34 children born across 6 generations of Spanish Habsburgs. Half died before their 10th birthday. 10 died before completing their first year. On November 1, 1700, Charles II died at 38. An autopsy later described his body as containing a single testicle, a heart the size of a peppercorn, lungs that had corroded to the consistency of water, intestines full of putrefied blood, and a head full of fluid. The Spanish Habsburg dynasty, which had ruled over much of Europe and the Americas for nearly 2 centuries, ended with him. He had not been murdered. He had simply been built from components that could not sustain a human life for long. Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II, Habsburg dynasty, Holy Roman Emperor, died 1612. Rudolf II was the great-great-nephew of Charles I of Spain. He was also, by the mathematics of the Habsburg family tree, a cousin of nearly every monarch in Europe. He did not particularly want to be emperor. He wanted to study alchemy, collect art, and correspond with astronomers. He invited Tycho Brahe and Johannes Kepler to his court in Prague. He assembled one of the largest art collections in Europe. He also, progressively, stopped governing. Beginning in his 40s, Rudolf retreated into the Hradzany Castle in Prague and refused audiences. He did not attend meetings. He did not sign documents. He communicated through intermediaries, when he communicated at all. Contemporaries described his condition in terms that align with what would now be called severe depression or bipolar disorder, conditions with documented genetic components that appear with increased frequency in populations with high inbreeding coefficients. His brother Matthias eventually raised an army and stripped him of his territories. One by one, Rudolf conceded Bohemia last in 1611, under direct military pressure. He died in January 1612, in the castle he had not left in years. Of causes his physicians recorded as despair. The formal diagnosis was grief. He had outlived his usefulness to the dynasty by approximately 2 decades. The dynasty had outlived its genetic viability by approximately the same margin. The family tree of European royalty, traced fully, eventually becomes a single point. Every line feeds back into every other line. Every cousin marriage narrows the distance between branches until the branches are the same branch. They called it keeping the blood pure. The blood, under microscopic analysis, called it something else. Tutankhamun's 130 walking canes. Juana's 46 years in a stone room. Charles II's heart the size of a peppercorn. Rudolf II's physicians writing despair as a cause of death on an official imperial document. The pattern is not mysterious. It is the direct, measurable, genetically documented consequence of a policy pursued deliberately over centuries by people who understood power and understood lineage but did not yet understand recessive alleles. They built the most elaborate system of hereditary rule in human history. Then they handed it, generation by generation, to children whose bodies could not support the weight of it. The thrones survived, the bloodlines did not.